all those moments will be lost in time.
Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we're gonna be reading some creepy stories. It might be a longer video than usual because I found a few really good ones. All the stories I've read, I've asked for consent by the writers to read them, so just getting that out of the way. Each of these stories will be linked in the description down below. Today's video is sponsored by Shudder. Shudder is a premium streaming service from AMC Networks. Shudder has the largest and fastest growing human-curated selection of thrilling and dangerous entertainment. You can stream great thrillers, horror, and suspense for $5.99 a month or $56.99 a year, and on all of your favorite devices such as Amazon, Fire TV, Roku, Xbox One, iOS, and Android. Shudder has a unique collection of exclusive and original films and series such as The Deadlands that premieres on January 23rd. To try Shudder for free for 30 days, go to shudder.com and use promo code READYTOGLARE. One specific film I enjoy on Shudder is titled Haunt, and it's actually by the same writers of the film A Quiet Place. If you like films centered on Halloween haunted houses, this is for you. Thank you again to Shudder for sponsoring this video, and remember, to try Shudder for free for 30 days, go to shudder.com and use promo code READYTOGLARE. Anyway, let's get on into these stories. Hello, my English is shit, but I have a story for you guys. This took place around 2 years ago. I was driving to work, a 5-hour drive. It was already dark. About 3 hours of driving, I started to get tired. I bought myself a coffee and some snacks at a gas station and went on. But snacks and coffee can only keep you awake for so long, and I started to feel tired again. This part of the road was nothing but thick, dark pinewood forest around me. No other cars on the road, nothing. Only insects smashing my windshield now and then, an empty road. I was now extremely tired, and at one point I nearly drove off the road for almost falling asleep. I have to sleep now. I can't wait for a gas station. I need to stop as soon as I see a place where I can park my car. Anything. When I'm tired, I fall asleep really fast. If I'm tired enough, I can fall asleep in the middle of a sentence when I'm talking. So it's a bit urgent for me to find a place where I can stop. It felt like an hour, but probably just 5 minutes go by and I spot this little pocket in the road. It's like a parking space for quick stops like peeing, switching drivers, or stuff like that. Not even a real resting area. I stopped here, turned down my windows to check if I heard any weird noises. Total silence. I turned up the windows again. Nothing bad is gonna happen. I haven't seen a car for like 30 minutes. This road is empty. If someone is checking out my car, I bet it's the cops checking on me if I'm alright. I leave my keys in the ignition and lock the doors just to be safe. I adjust my seat a bit to make it more comfortable to sleep in, and I take off my shoes and put them on the passenger seat on the right. It's so nice to close my eyes and I instantly fall asleep. I don't know why, but something wakes me up. I can't really see anything. Some kind of bright light hits me in the eyes. First, I thought it was a flashlight, but then I realized it is the high beams from another car in my rearview mirror that is blinding me. I look in my left mirror and see a dude walking up beside my car. Maybe he wants help with something? Should I make it clear to him that I'm in here? He's right beside my left back door. Should I step out and ask what he is doing? I didn't have to. This dude proceeds to pull on my left back door. I almost shit my fucking pants when I realized that he's trying to force his way into my car. My seat is adjusted for me to lay down and I pushed it back max. I can't reach the pedals, which makes it impossible for me to drive my car. I slam the car horn and it breaks the silence with a roar and the dude jumps. That gives me like 2 seconds to push my seat to reach the pedals, but it's still way out of adjustment, so I'm kind of pulling myself to the steering wheel because my seat is laying flat and isn't supporting my back. Anyway, I start my car and drive off with a cloud of smoke from my screeching tires. It's hard to drive a car with nothing holding up your upper body, but I managed. As I leave, I look in the rearview mirror and I can see how the dude stands there and looks at me. And I can see 2 more guys coming up beside him. What I can see in the silhouette of their beams, one of them has something in his hand, like a wrench or crowbar. I drove super fast, way over the speed limit. My whole body was trembling with adrenaline and fear. I drove like that for 30 minutes, then I stopped at a gas station to fix my seat and put my shoes on again. I figured out I was only sleeping for like 10 minutes. Well, I didn't have to sleep until I got to my destination, which is surrounded by heavy-duty fencing and the building has an alarm. I told my boss the next day, and he said they actually have problems with what we call it in Sweden, road pirates. Criminals that force you to stop on the road and rob you of everything, including your car, in that specific area. It could just be 3 nice dudes that wanted to check if I was okay, then why didn't they just knock on my driver's window? The thing in his hand could be a big flashlight. Be safe. Here's a picture of the scenery I took right before I went to sleep, and I'll put in the picture. This is exactly why I don't like the concept of sleeping on the side of the road. Of course, this person didn't really have that many options considering. Shit like this scares me so much, and this is also why I refuse to sleep in my car. If there's any other way, I will refuse. But I'm glad that they woke up and thought quickly, because I know that when I wake up, I'm so groggy. I don't know if I'd be able to think this quickly. Maybe the fear also helps, but I'm just glad this person got away. This is definitely gonna stay in my mind whenever I want to stop on the side of the road though. Hi guys, this is my first post ever on Reddit, and I made a new account just to post this story, so please bear with me. For context, I am 5'3", about 105 pounds, and 21 years old, and this happened to me this morning, New Year's Day, 2020. Also, just for a warning, this is long, but it's really weird and unsettling, and I was hoping someone here could help me come up with a theory for the motive of this man, because going insane, not knowing, and scaring myself even more. So my boyfriend Jack and I went out last night to a bar to celebrate New Year's Eve. I noticed he was getting possibly a little too drunk at the bar, so I suggested we go home. He agreed. This was around 12:30 a.m. We had been drinking since 8. We got home and Jack stumbles into the mudroom and lays on the ground. I was super exhausted being drunk and also dealing with a drunk person, so I took this opportunity to lock the back door we came in through before I forgot. After that, we go upstairs and go to bed. So, a little bit of background. I always lock my bedroom door even if the front and back door are locked, because after watching the Ted Bundy documentary of him breaking into college students' housing just had me so freaked out. In addition, my bedroom is on the 3rd floor of the house and just rationally the last bedroom that you would get to if you walked into the house not knowing the layout and entered the rooms as you encounter them. Anyway, I locked my bedroom door before bed the night before because I had a bad feeling, but I just wrote it off as my general anxiety. But Jack got up to pee during the night and didn't relock it, shaking my head. Anyway, at about 7:45 in the morning, I woke up to hear my bedroom door opening, and immediately thinking it should be locked, I dart my head up to see what's going on. Jack is also laying next to me, closest to the door at this point. I look up at the door to just see a man open my door, and my blood runs cold. He spots my boyfriend, then slowly closes the door and walks calmly back down the stairs. He was wearing a baseball hat with his head at a slightly downward tilt, when coupled with the darkness of my room completely shrouded his face. Possibly wearing a flannel type shirt over a t-shirt, as it was open like a flannel. I wasn't able to see or make out any other details other than the fact he looked on the younger side and was skinnier. But he walks in. I think he only looked at my BF, but I'm not even sure if he saw me turn to look at him. At first, I think my roommate's boyfriend walked into the wrong room drunkenly and almost dismiss it because I'm so startled by what is going on. Mind you, this whole ordeal happened within the span of a few seconds. Then, my boyfriend asks me who was that and if he should go check it out. He didn't see the man, but he was also woken by the sound of my door opening. He also heard the footsteps going back down the stairs. Me, not fully comprehending, said no need to check anything out. But about 15 seconds after I said no, I told him there isn't supposed to be anyone else in the house as all my roommates are away. We hop out of bed and throw on some sweats, and I grab a pair of scissors for defense and leave my room to find out what the fuck is going on. We headed downstairs about 1 to 2 minutes after I saw the man at my door. I'm calling the police as my boyfriend Jack grabs a knife and goes through all the rooms of the house, making sure it's clear. As we were checking, I noticed the front and back door is still locked, although the windows are unlocked, they are all still closed. At first glance, it doesn't even seem like anyone had been in the house at all. Everything was just as it was, nothing touched or ransacked. The police luckily showed up about 5 minutes after I called. Really quick response time, I was so appreciative, and began to search the house. We had to file a report and fill out some statements, but all in all, they weren't able to find anything but a set of possible fingerprints on the outside of our ground floor windows. Because there was such little evidence, I think some of the officers were doubting what I had seen. They asked me if I could have been dreaming it since I had just woken up from a night of drinking when it happened, or if a possible friend just decided to crash at our place without telling us. And I said, "Sir, I've never been more positive in my life that what I saw was real." I didn't perceive the threat mildly, but there is no doubt in my mind it was real, and there was not even a person who could have possibly done that, as we don't have a large friend group and we rarely ever have anyone over. Then the officer and my roommates texted and asked if I could look at all the rooms and see if anything was taken. So as I mentioned, my bedroom is the last bedroom you would reach if you went through the house logically, meaning 2 of my roommates' rooms are on the 2nd floor and before mine. I checked every bedroom and all valuables were untouched. I sent pictures of my roommates' Apple laptops, watches, AirPods, etc., and they all said nothing was even slightly moved. So, this man took nothing? Also, all their bedroom doors were still closed as if no one had ever entered them. I have no proof he entered any room except mine. So this is where I get super freaked out. Before the police leave, they ask me if I have any past issues with stalkers or restraining orders, etc., and I said I had not. They said what was really weird about the break-in was not only that there was little to no evidence anyone broke in, but also because we had 3 cars in our driveway. One of my roommates is abroad right now, so her car is here, including mine and Jack's. So for a stranger to look in, there seemed to be at least 3 people at home at the moment. I left lights on throughout the house, so it looked like more people were home. Can you tell I'm a very paranoid person? Which is terrifying that this man felt comfortable creeping in that occupied home. Secondly, the fact this man not only got caught breaking and entering, but the calmness of his walk back down the stairs after I saw him just sends the chills down my spine. I have no other way to describe it other than he was acting like he had the right to be in my home, just accidentally opened the wrong door. The police said it's very unusual for a thief to lock up as in close the window/door he came in through after being caught. Because he took nothing, it worries me that maybe his motives were more sinister and that he could possibly come back. Why would a burglar enter a house that looks like it has 3 individuals in it? Why was he so calm? If he was there to rob me, why were the first 2 floors seemingly untouched? There were other weird details that I can't recall right now because I've honestly been agonizing over this the entire day and feel very uncomfortable. If anyone has any theories as to what possibly could have been going on here or what his motive was, it would tremendously help. I'm not looking for a benign answer like what if he was confused or drunk or something, because that is just not the case. I can't even explain the feeling of fear that ran through me when I saw this man at my door. So, at the man who woke me up on New Year's Day, let's not ever meet again. Frankly, that is so creepy. I don't even know what I would do. I feel like I would be so petrified and just scared that I might freeze. Like ideally you'd get up and catch them or like block them in some way from running away so the police can get them, but at the same time, that's just so scary and I'd be worried that they are armed or have something on them that could hurt me. Some people in the comments of this story were saying that this guy was a rapist looking for a passed out girl to take advantage of. And frankly, I mean, that's probably one of the most realistic things in terms of theories, because if he's not taking anything and allegedly he's not a stalker as far as this girl knows, I don't know what else he would be doing in there apart from looking for someone to assault, because it is New Year's Day, so people typically do party on New Year's Eve and get drunk. This happened to me my freshman year of college. Tinder was new and everyone at my university was on the app. I joined to see what all the fuss was about. Looking through profiles, I found a few guys that were really interesting, and this one guy in particular caught my eye. We'll call him Walter. I was excited and kind of giddy because he was super attractive. He messages me and I got butterflies in my stomach. We message on the app for maybe an hour. Typical conversation is happening. I asked him what he did for a living, and he asked what my major was. Harmless conversation. After a while, he asked for my number so we could text instead of message on this app. I gave it to him. He seemed nice enough. We messaged back and forth for a few days. Lots of flirty conversation and plans to hang out finally occurred. By the 4th day of conversation, he started calling me babe, which gave me mixed feelings. It was cute, but also a little weird. We didn't really know each other and had never met. I ignored it and continued on with the conversation. He started saying he wanted to be exclusive and he really wanted to see me in person. He was begging me at this point to come to his apartment and cuddle and watch movies with him and his dog. I told him that our first meet needed to be in public. I would not be going to some stranger's apartment. He said I was overreacting and kept begging. I ignored him for the rest of the night. Next day, he apologized and said he understood we needed to meet in public, so we made plans that weekend. The weekend came faster than I expected, and it was the day we were supposed to meet. Something just felt off and I decided to back out. I texted him apologizing, saying my mom wasn't feeling well and needed me to come home to help her with house chores. This made him annoyed and he said, "Your mom is a big girl. If she needs you, she can call you. Just come over and you can leave whenever to go help her. I really want to see and kiss you." I told him no, that I would be staying with my mom that weekend, and that was that. I only lived about 30 minutes from home, so I actually did go home to see my mom that day. After what he said about my mom, I started ignoring him, and the texts started rolling in, text after text. "Babe, I'm sorry. Please come over. Babe, I miss you. Are you going to come over?" I planned on replying the next day that I was just busy with my mom. Then he started calling me. I had a total of 45 missed calls within a 2-hour period. He left voicemails saying he was sorry and he just missed me and wanted me to call him back. Similar voicemails continued almost the entire time I was home. My roommate texted me shortly after I finished dinner with my mom and asked if we could go out that night. I agreed and went back to my university dorm. Suddenly, the calls from Walter started to increase again. More texts, voicemails, and he started messaging me again on Tinder, asking why I wasn't replying to him. I wasn't planning on replying until I got a message on Instagram that said, "Why didn't you tell me you were coming back to town tonight?" Getting this message really freaked me out. I replied to him and said, "Sorry, I've been busy with my mom. How do you know I was back in town?" And he said, "Well, I checked your Tinder, of course." Tinder doesn't tell exact locations, but has a within 1 mile message. This really freaked me out, and I messaged him back and said that he was being really creepy. He seriously had to be constantly refreshing my profile to see the distance change. The messages, calls, and voicemails continue. All were now him apologizing for making me feel weird about him knowing where I was. He was just quote unquote worried about me when we had been texting for less than a full week. Less than a full week. I told my roommate about it, and so we decided to stay in that night. The last straw for me was getting calls saying, "Look, I'm really sorry. I'm outside your dorm with flowers and chocolates. Please forgive me." Oh hell no. I called campus security and told them about this guy, and they never found anyone waiting outside any doors. I'm assuming he was in his car waiting for me to reply. I blocked him on all socials, phone number, deleted Tinder, and have never been back on since. I've seen him once out and about in the town, but he never recognized me, thankfully. Walter, if you ever read this, I'm glad we never met. Thanks for making me second guess every guy I find attractive. So this was majorly creepy. Every time I read stories like this, I thank God that I'm not on any of these apps. Honestly, I feel bad for people who are dating because I feel like hearing stories like this would turn me off from apps entirely. And that's not to say you can't meet anyone without an app, but apps definitely make it a little bit easier to see more options, especially if you're looking for someone who's interested in maybe niche interests. I'm glad nothing happened to this individual. I'm glad they got out of this and that they called campus security. That was a smart thing to do. I'm glad they didn't give in to the pressure. One thing I'm gonna say is to avoid giving your phone number for a longer time. I met Jacob, my husband, on Tinder, and I think I only gave him my number, I think about 3 months after we started talking on Tinder. I just didn't really want to run the risk, and now I'm a lot more paranoid, so I know that people can like find your address with your number and stuff like that. So definitely better to just talk on an app or even on social media, even if it's not Tinder, before giving your phone number out. I watched a film that reminded me of what I went through, so thought to share it here. It still bothers me, but as time's gone on, it's getting better. When I first started dating my now husband a few years ago, we would meet up after he finished work and he would bring his bike and lock it up as he lived a few miles away from me and the next town where I lived and he worked. He biked a few miles a day. We would also meet up with friends sometimes. After, we would walk to his bike and then he would walk me to a taxi and I would wave goodbye as it's driving off. I lived a few miles from the nearest town myself. My husband lived a few more miles out. He would then bike home. I never once thought to check if the taxi man had an ID or the face matched the picture, to check the company actually exists. I just trusted it was a real thing. I do constantly check these things now and ring up to make sure the person actually works there. Sounds paranoid, but here's why. I got in the taxi just like every other time. The taxi driver seemed quiet, but I just assumed he was either tired from a long shift or a bit shy. Being a bit shy myself, I thought I understood. I did the usual and told him where I lived. To get to my parents' house, I was living at this point, you have to go down a very long road and a street about a mile long, then you have 2 turnings. If you miss one, it doesn't matter, you just drive up a bit more and you get to the second turning. The man missed the first turning. I thought he must have daydreamed while driving and didn't know the area very well. Back then, I did a lot of giving people the benefit of the doubt and overly naive and nice. I told him, but he kept on driving. Fear did kick in and I actually shouted, "You're going to miss the second turning too," as he was still driving. He wasn't saying a word at this point. I remember grabbing my phone to ring the police and he slammed the brakes on, causing my phone to slip out of my hand and land on the floor near my feet. He reversed backwards without checking if any other cars were behind us and was about to go down the second turning. I quickly said, "Here's fine," as I had a bad feeling and didn't want him to know where I was living. He finally spoke and said, "Sorry about that, I'm tired. Been a long night." I felt bad for shouting and doubting this man at this point, but after the second turning, if you don't go down it, it leads to countryside and nothing for a few miles, so I was scared he was heading that way. I said, "Don't worry, give him money," and then said keep the change, as I felt it for him being tired. He said thank you and smiled and put his hand on my leg and said, "You know, you're a very pretty girl." With that, I quickly smiled awkwardly and said good night, and I didn't manage to get one foot out the door when he grabbed my arm and I fell funny on my right side, which hurt. I managed to pull myself back up and tried to get out. Some of it is a blur, but I remember him pulling and I could feel pain on my arms. I managed to get one foot out the door when he yanked me by my hair and I could feel pain on my neck. I managed to wiggle free and I left everything in the car. It was a case of run, Forrest, run, and I ran home as fast as I could. Luckily, it was just around the corner. I remember running up the stairs and ringing my boyfriend, now husband, and then it just went black. I passed out. I woke up the next day in my own bed. My boyfriend stopped over on the sofa. My mom and dad let him. He informed me what had happened. They let me sleep for a bit. When I did wake up, I had scratch marks and blood all over my arms and back from the taxi driver and didn't realize at the time, but the asshole bit me too, on my arm. I ran upstairs to feel safe and blacked out from shock. I rang all the taxi services and even the police the next day. I gave the company name and nobody ever heard of it. I gave the description of what he looked like. I then thought, has anyone else in our hometown had this bad experience? So I went on Facebook and asked around, and to my shock, lots of girls that I knew said they had an encounter with him. One said he was acting shady and showing off, so she didn't go in. Another got out when he complained about her sitting in the back seat and not the front. The police said he must have started and backed out the plan, or saw I was about to use my phone when we went past the second turning, but got the courage to do it again. My boyfriend went back to the area where I ran from and found all my stuff laid out on the path. Obviously didn't want evidence in his car. car. Police were keeping a lookout for him, but nothing ever came of it until a few years later he was caught. Me and my husband were watching the news and he got arrested. One woman rang the police and they got him on so many attacks and attempts. I do wish I managed to get a good swinging punch in his face, but glad he was caught and hope he's learned his lesson. Taxi driver from hell, let's not meet. And this is why I'm afraid of any rideshare apps or taxis or any kind of transport that includes you and one person, like anything other than public transport, I suppose. Anytime I'm in a taxi or a rideshare and they miss a turn, that causes such deep anxiety, hence why I avoid it to the death if I can. And the few times I do, I use an app where Jacob can track exactly where I am and where I can call 911, because there's so many weird people on ride-sharing apps and taxis and things like that. That shit scares the hell out of me. It makes me super paranoid because small things, like I said, like missing a turn, now are red flags, and I'm like, oh god, they're gonna murder me or something. This took place about 7 years ago. I'd been single for a very long time. My kids kept telling me to go back into the swing of things, but I just kept making excuses. My nephew told me about this dating site. He said there was no harm in talking to people, so I did. I put everything out there so there were no surprises when or if they met me. I thought that if they still contacted me after reading all that I described about myself and we matched, then maybe I would have coffee with them. Well, I matched with a few and the conversation went well. I met one gentleman who was way too regimental for my crazy life and kindly declined any more involvement with him. Another guy seemed too pushy and acted like I should be honored in his presence, but then there came, we will call him Richard. Now please keep in mind I had a very low self-esteem at the time. That being said, Richard seemed great. We carried on conversations for hours. He lived an hour and a half away, so all we could really do was talk to each other. We talked about our kids, dreams, goals. My daughter even friended one of his sons on Facebook. I was a secretary for some self-help meetings in my town, and he was going to school to be a counselor. Perfect, right? We talked for at least 4 months, but after a while I noticed that he kept having small problems come up. Arguments with his mom with whom he was living, no money for gas, his truck broke down, his oldest boy was mad at him, just little things, you know? Not anything that would set me off, but it was his poor me to heck with it attitude. I tried to let that go and be a really positive influence in his life. His mother and boys loved me and told me they had never seen him so happy. Time went on and we were still talking every day. I had an opportunity to come see him, and of course my daughter went with me so she could meet his son in person as well. I took him and his son to eat at the only little coffee shop in that town. He knew I was on a fixed income, but I paid anyway because he was going to school and didn't have an income as of yet. We had a good time. We met at his son's house on a hilltop town. We were having such a good time that we didn't notice that the snow was coming down hard and the roads were icing up, so my daughter and I stayed the night in one of the rooms. It seemed like the closer we got to the family, the more distant they became to him. It was odd. The next day the roads were clear, so we said our goodbyes and went home, but before we left I received one extra hug from his son's mother-in-law. She whispered in my ear, "Don't fall for him." I thought maybe there was something she didn't like about me. That came out of left field. Next few days we didn't talk. I thought that was odd. Did I do something wrong? Someone from the self-help meeting told me there was a man looking for me. She said he looked disheveled and smelled like alcohol. This wasn't a surprise to me because I had helped quite a few people get back on their feet, and maybe this one fell off the wagon and just needed to talk. As I was driving down my street, I saw a truck in my driveway. I didn't recognize it at first. It was him. He found out where I lived and was sitting in front of my house. At first I was happy until I looked at his truck and saw him slumped over reeking of booze. At that point, my fixed mode set in and I asked him in for some strong coffee. He told me that he had a blowout with his mother and she kicked him out and his boys won't talk to him. I got some clean clothes and told him to take a shower. I figured we could sort it out the next day. In the meantime, I was taking him to a meeting. He sobered up and agreed to go. The whole time at the meeting, my friends were acting like I'd lost my mind. Did they see something I was blind of? We went back to my house and he seemed okay. Almost too okay, like nothing at all had happened. My son pulled me aside and told me he didn't like him much, but I thought maybe he was just being overprotective. I should have paid attention. Went to the store because I wasn't prepared for the extra mouth and I bought 4 2-liters of soda, a gallon of milk, and 2 Monsters for him and my son, some chips and stuff for dinner. After we ate, we all watched some TV and headed off to bed. I let him sleep in the spare bed in my room, but in the middle of the night, he tried to get frisky. At that point, no. My grown kids were in the other room and something just didn't sit well with me. Like, he wasn't the same man he was before. The next morning, my daughter came running out of the bathroom angry and she says, "Someone pissed all over the toilet." He didn't say a word. Later, we were all eating breakfast and he started to let food drop out of his mouth onto the table and was spitting food while he was talking. He took 2 3-liters and drank them back to back, letting some run down his chin. What the hell? Then, yes, there is more. He took the remote and started to set recordings for his favorite shows, deleting a few of my grandchildren's recordings set for weeks in advance. Wait, what are you doing, my friend? This is not cool, I told him, but he acted like I said nothing. Then he went to the refrigerator and told me I had to go to the store and buy more soda and stuff. It was all gone, like it was gone. He even drank my son's Monster and the whole gallon of milk. At this point, my daughter was also livid, so she contacted his son and he proceeded to tell her that his mom kicked him out because he wouldn't get a job and was stealing money and eating her out of house and home. His other son won't talk to him because he keeps asking for money and won't pay it back. He himself was mad at him for lying to me by telling me that he was going to school when he wasn't and was using me as his next big meal ticket. Well, that was it. I got all of his stuff together and took him to the truck and asked him to leave. It doesn't end there. He had loosened some bolts on his transmission, making it impossible to move. He begged and pleaded for me to stay. He was at the point of snot coming out of his nose. Good God. He said that he just wanted to be close to me, and if that meant sleeping in his truck, he would do that and he couldn't live without me. Well, hell to the no. I called his oldest son and told him that if they didn't come with a tow truck and get their dad, his fate would not be nice. They arrived 2 hours later apologizing for his father's actions. We found out through his son that for many years he had gone through many unhealthy relationships and took advantage of a lot of women that fell for his lives. He still tries to friend me on Facebook to this day. Frankly, that's super creepy, and I mean, this guy just sounds like he was lazy and didn't want to put it in the work, and I feel bad for his sons for having to have a father like that. Thankfully, it seems like the rest of the family is there for the kids, and I mean, they're adults because one of them owns a house, but nonetheless, it's just crazy to me the extent someone will go to not work to the point of getting into a relationship just to be not even necessarily a gold digger as much as being taken care of, right? So I'm just glad this person got away from him because this dude sounds creepy as shit. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Shudder for sponsoring this video. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.